welcome to the Jolera interview series. I'm your host, Paolo Del Nibletto, the Chief Channel Business for Jolera, and welcome to 2021, everyone. Aren't you glad to put 2020 in the rearview mirror, kicking that sucker to the curb? You can add any descriptor you want in here, but I'm glad that year is over with and done with. Before I introduce my guest, I want to tell you that this interview series features prominent executives and influencers from the IT industry talking about technology innovation, the as-a-service market, leadership, and the overall marketplace. And joining us today is Diane Krakora of PartnerPath in Silicon Valley, California. Diane founded PartnerPath back in 1998 when it was called Amazon Consulting. This is why I call Diane the original Amazon. Diane is one of the most influential channel strategists there is. Diane, in over 2 decades of work, has crafted some of the more progressive channel programs for some of the big names in our industry, such as Cisco, Citrix, Dell, Dropbox, Microsoft, SAP, VMware, and many, many more. Please welcome Diane Krakora.
Nice to see you. Wow, I sound old with all that work and, the original Amazons. And I think that's because I'm 6'1".
Yes. And I'm not. So we always make a quite a unique pair. But Diane, I wanted to bring you on to start off the year because you, along with our good friend of ours, Jay McBain of Forrester Research, who was a previous guest on this show, embark on an annual tradition of making bold predictions for the marketplace. And in this video, we're going to get to your top 5 predictions for 2021. But first, Diane, I would like to get from you your overall take on this unforgettable year of 2020. What did you make of it? What should we take from it in terms of lessons learned going into the new year?
Thanks for having me, Paolo. And I will keep this non-political, considering I am in California and you're in Canada, and we are a couple of days away from inauguration. But so let's keep it in terms of IT and really what we saw in 2020. And I think you guys all feel that the global pandemic really ravaged the world, both medically and financially, and accelerated 5 of the 6 trends, the 6 buyer trends that we had been watching for the last 5 years. So the 5 that it accelerated was that customers are really expecting business outcomes. They're not just looking to buy IT for IT's sake, right? They want a solution that creates an outcome. That's one. That was certainly accelerated. The second is this idea of an emerging line of business buyers, that CMOs and VPs of sales bought technology. And we saw that as we're all at home. It was also a transition a little bit from IT departments being involved to this emerging line of business buyers buying technology. Number 3, 4, and 5 that the pandemic accelerated are all about online. 3 was researching online and finding those solutions online. Of course, since we were all stuck at home, the whole online business became huge. So transacting online was the 4th one out of the 6 that we saw accelerated by the pandemic. And then the 5th one was purchasing as a subscription, this idea of a per drink or per license model. The only trend that we've been watching over the last 5 years in the channel that didn't accelerate with the pandemic was the complexity of the solution that meets those customers' business outcomes that we talked about in kind of that first trend. So 5 out of the 6 trends that we've been watching for the last 5 years accelerated in March of 2020.
Amazing. Okay, so Diane, let's get the crystal ball out and start making predictions. What is your number 1 prediction on your list?
Well, in no particular order, no. The top thing that we see happening as we go into 2021 is this acceleration of marketplaces. As we kind of mentioned, out of the 6 trends that we've been watching, 3 of them were kind of all online, and of course that accelerated in the pandemic. As did the whole idea of subscription models, right? And 100% subscription models that we've seen, IBM and Dell and HP and Cisco announce in the last 6 months that they're all moving to 100% subscription model.
Right.
So in this, we really see the whole idea of marketplaces being integral to the IT channel. In that subscription model, an average customer in a multi-cloud or hybrid cloud solution tends to buy 7 different things.
Interesting.
From 7 different vendors, unless of course it comes from Jolera where they're all combined together.
Exactly.
Right? And so 73% of customers think that buying through e-commerce and marketplaces is easier. A lot of that is, as we know, B2C, but we're really seeing B2B take hold here. And B2B is taking hold because we're seeing guys like in the B2C space, like Alibaba and Amazon, really create B2B marketplaces as well. So the big question that we have in the prediction is what marketplaces will be relevant to you guys in 2021?
Okay, so I read through all your predictions and we'll post them here. But number 2, which is non-transacting partners and their impact, I thought that was quite unique. What are you seeing with this group?
Yeah, non-transacting partners, these are organizations that aren't your traditional IT solution provider, yet do a lot of influence in cloud-based technology and solution purchases. These are the channels that encompass many types of organizations, a variety of business models. Of course, there is a transacting channel that we've all known and loved for years, the dealer network, your wholesale distribution, your resellers, your franchises, your retail, Paolo, all that stuff you used to write about. Yep. And of course, now your marketplaces. Now, we also see this non-transacting channel that shows up before the point of sale, and we'll talk about that as well in the next one when we talk about influencing the influencers. And because everybody's converting to a subscription model, we also see these guys show up after the sale, and they drive a lot of value in that adoption, expansion, renewal cycle, which we'll also talk about in terms of customer adoption. So we're seeing this whole set of partners that don't want to transact with you, that don't want to transact with the vendor, they don't want to resell. So there's an idea of how do you engage non-transacting partners along with your traditional partners and all these types of new partners, new business models into a broader ecosystem. The old partnering models, the frameworks, the programs that we've written about for decades aren't going to fit in this whole big constellation of partner types that include transacting and non-transacting partners.
And I guess the challenge there is how are you going to get to know these people to, make a difference?
Right. I mean, reaching out to these guys and it's going to be, and finding these influencers, both on the front end and the back end, is certainly one of the challenges that we see channel chiefs like you now facing as we go into 2021.
Okay, Dan, number 3 is something that Jay McBain talks a lot about, which is the Trifurcation channel model. What do you see happening here for 2021?
So yes, the trifurcation, in which Jay and I always argue because I add the quadfurcation, but let me explain what the trifurcation of the channel is. Sure. So trifurcation is that non-transacting influencers or advisors kind of before the sale, those consultants that are setting up the idea that a customer may need technology to solve that business outcome. We talked about the business outcome being one of those 5 trends we've been watching for 5 years. The second of the trifurcation is those transacting partners, those traditional resellers, those guys that are 80% of all your partner programs out there. And then the third piece of the trifurcation are services partners that implement and integrate the solution, driving that idea of adoption, renewal, and retention. I had the quad on that, which is the developers and those that are building upon your solutions and creating IP around those. So I add the quad to Jay's trifurcation. We argued about that in the end of the year. He said, well, that's part of everybody. But anyway, so as we talk about this trifurcation,
I'm with you, Diane, on that one. We should add the quad.
We add the quad, right? Except it's not as cute as the trifurcation because it's a quadfurcation. No. But we really think that the builders, those that are adding IP and developing and creating solutions and technologies to glue these things together are very important as we go through as this whole ecosystem. As we mentioned, the average customer in a multi-cloud, hybrid cloud solution buys 7 things with 7 vendors. Of course, unless you're from Jolera, then you get it all bundled into one. And there are, on average, 5 different partners that are highly influential in guiding that customer through through their journey, which is a primarily digital journey. Welcome to 2021.
Sure.
So you've got to influence as many people as possible around that customer to a scale that we haven't yet seen. So this is the kind of the first part of that trifurcation, right? Those non-transacting, those influencers, those advisors, those guys that are really setting the customer up for needing a technology to produce a business outcome. And then the question is, how do we influence those influencers? You mentioned earlier, how do you find them? Where do you go to get them? And how do you get them kind of engaged with your organization?
Okay, so Diane, speaking of quad, we go to number 4, which is a great segue there, right? Customer adoption. So what do you mean by that?
Right, so in that quad trifurcation model that we just talked about, your channel exists of influencers, those early guys, the transaction partners, and those that drive customer success. Traditionally, we've called them services partners.
Yep.
They implement, they install, they configure the solution. But now as we think of the customer journey, particularly in subscription models, you've done all the work that we've talked about around influence. We found these influencers, they've recommended your solution as part of that one of those 7 vendors. Yay, you've made it to the finish line. You're one of the 7 vendors that are part of this solution. And the customer has transacted somehow, right? That middle trifurcation, the transaction part. Be it on a solution provider, a VAR, a marketplace, direct to us, it really doesn't matter. And to you, it won't matter in the future either, as long as they transact, because they're a customer. And the joke now is in a subscription model, they're a customer, but that only gets you your first 30 days.
That's right.
Right? It gets you, they're now a customer, but that's a first 30 days. So like every subscription or consumption-based business, the measures are not the old ones of sales or landed or revenue or even profit, the KPIs that we've had quite literally for decades. The 2021 measure is going to be adoption, getting past those first 30 days and having your solution and your product in that overall stack of 7 used. Because if it's not used and adopted, it's coming back at you. And if you sold it for a year subscription, it may not come back at you after the 30 days, but it's coming back. And they're not going to grow or renew. And as we know, when we're looking at subscription-based models, that it's the customer lifetime value of the growth and the renewal is what really makes it profitable for you guys to spend the money to acquire a new customer. That customer acquisition costs are high if they're not growing and renewing with you guys.
Yeah, I say this all the time. It's a Netflix society, right? 30 days, you're bang on that one for sure.
30 days, okay. Right? I mean, it's
yeah.
Spotify. We were talking earlier.
Yeah.
I got my mom onto Spotify, and if she's not using it in 30 days, then that's she's going to turn it off and say, I don't listen to Spotify.
Okay, last prediction for 2021. Which is the ecosystem multiplier. Sounds like a new way to increase revenue for channel partners. And should they get excited about this? What's that all about?
Yes, they should get excited about it, but it's not necessarily a new way to increase revenues for partners, but it's helping the partners and you understand the overall drag of $1 of your licenses sold. Mm-hmm. So in 2021, we're predicting that you and all the other vendors out there will need to figure out every $1 of hardware, software, services that gets created, enriched, resold as a result of the $1 of your product sold. So this is the ecosystem value of your solution. For example, Salesforce has talked about for years that they have a $4.65 multiplier.
Yep.
right? That every dollar of Salesforce license drags $4.65 of other stuff along with it. So if 80% of your future partners are going to be these non-transacting ones, right? The ones either on the front side that are influencing or on the back side of the transaction that are driving customer success, then they want to hear how big the pie is to make it worth their while to join your program or to partner with you guys. Because they need to get certified and direct their mind share to you. They're not transacting, right? They're not making their money 30% off of discount for reselling licenses. So they want to know everything else around you. What is that overall dollar value? And we see it broken out into kind of services as well as other kind of transactions or other products that are resold along with that.
So I gather channel chiefs have to make their business case to partners, right, to get any sort of traction there for sure. I see that as well. Those are your top 5 2021 predictions. Thank you very much. In closing, let me ask you, Diane, in terms of PartnerPath, what are your plans for this year? Do you see yourself implementing some of these strategies inside your own business?
Of course, absolutely. As we're a consulting company, so we're focused specifically on services. We no longer have a product. We sold off the PRM product that we used to have about 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, not that I'm counting. So we are particularly focused on marketplaces, particularly, for services, right? Again, just as an example of a marketplace, Salesforce probably has the first and the best well-known in terms of the App Exchange. And these guys also list a whole bunch of companies that offer services around that. So we're focused on those kind of marketplaces, and as well as harnessing influencers. Not necessarily just kind of customers and clients, but who is else out there that is surrounding kind of channel consulting that can make recommendations and influence a customer around purchasing channel consulting.
Okay, great. Anything to add that you felt I didn't cover any of my questions?
Well, interestingly enough, we should probably talk in about a month, because we just completed some research on how the pandemic has affected the IT channel partners around the world. So we've broken them into small, medium, and large kind of solution providers, as well as across different geographies, to see what has the last year done to their business models and their business activities. So we've just finished that. We are going through the data. And I think that might be interesting to look at in terms of, did the smaller partners fare better or worse in this pandemic? And did the US or North America, sorry, just to include you, and you are another state.
No worries.
We think of you guys as another state.
Hey, listen, Jolera is worldwide, so it's all good.
All right. I just know you're in Canada.
I know.
So I think that's one thing that we should probably look at in terms of some research. And then we're also planning some research with the vendors on these 5 predictions that we had started at the beginning of the year to see how they're progressing. So the middle of the year, we should have some data on kind of the vendor community around these things like marketplaces and non-transacting partners and driving adoption and the solution multiplier.
Well, we're definitely going to have to check that out for sure. So, Diane, where can people find you, either online or on social media?
Well, you can always reach me directly. It's dkrakora@partner-path.com. And on the web, our website has a hyphen between the word partner and the word path. But on LinkedIn and Twitter, it is PartnerPath without the hyphen. So who knows, right? So find a hyphen, find not a hyphen.
Don't you love compound words? All right.
Love compound. It's what we could have 8 years ago, right?
Yeah. Well, Diane, thanks for making the predictions for this year. Let's talk again in December to see how well you did with these. But regardless of that, amazing insight. Really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing. There you have it from Diane Krakora of PartnerPath. Best of luck to you in 2021. That's it for me, Paolo Del Nibletto, signing off for the Jolera interview series. Until next time, so long.